Savage. I'm not an ordinary talk show host. I'm not a guy who was a disc jockey who got lucky. Let's make this a vigorous discussion. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. You've got to do the right thing for humanity. Let's re-educate America. There is no separation of church and state in the Constitution. What is socialized medicine? It's a disaster. Let's show the Hollywood idiots that we have a brain. Red, diaper, doper babies. They're running the universities, they're running the journalism departments, and they're running the courts. How could this be happening to sane, normal, decent, patriotic Americans? I have been talking about borders, language, and culture ever since I began in the media. How can the listeners to the Savage Nation stop them from tearing our culture to pieces?
Savage.
Be here or be nowhere.
Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, and psychological nudity. Viewer discretion is advised.
You're watching MSNBC. Now, best-selling author and one of America's most popular radio personalities, Michael Savage, on the Savage Nation.
Hey. Hello, infidels, and welcome to the Savage Nation. As you probably know, today is the first official day of summer, June 21st. Garland for the summer solstice. Remember when you were a kid how you couldn't wait for summer to start and how sad you were when summer ended? Well, I'm wearing yellow today because I cherish my memories of summer. Why? Well, they remind me of a different America, a more pure America, where your mother or your sister could walk the streets safely at night, right? Remember that? You heard about it, right? Or where the cops were pillars of authority. Everyone was afraid of a cop. That's why neighbors treated neighbors with courtesy and respect. That's why your mother could walk to a store. Did that America really exist? Think about it. I think it existed. I don't think it's a fantasy, and I'd like it to exist again. And that's what today's Savage Nation is about. In one way or another, it's all about whether or not we can regain America, that beautiful America. And everything I'm going to talk about today is related to that dream and that vision. I believe we can make it happen again. And as always, when you watch this show, you're going to experience extreme psychological nudity. What is psychological nudity? This week, I'll lay bare the liberal lies that continue to damage this nation. It is not pretty, but if you want an America like the one I want, the first step is to understand the savage truth and strip away the liberal lies. Now, before we begin, since it is the first day of summer, we have a special treat for you on the Savage Nation. Rachel, will you please come up and show America? Well, what's nicer than a pretty girl and a beautiful dog on the Savage Nation? And we're going to have beautiful dogs and beautiful girls on the Savage Nation for the first day of summer. As you can see, the dog is not camera shy is all, but the bandana fell off, so well, it does match. We're going to talk about dogs. We're going to talk about young ladies. Rachel's going to tell us all about Cash and what kind of incredible hybrid Cash is. And her name is not Cash-o-Fal. It is plain old Cash, and she's sitting on the New York Times, by the way, which is all the news that is fit for the dogs. Okay, we'll see you later, sweetheart, and thanks very much, Rachel.
Michael.
All that and more on the Savage Nation. And here are the topics that we're going to do about. The demon cats are making noise this week. Demon cats, you know them as Democrats. Is there any point to what they're all saying about President Bush, about weapons of mass destruction, about anything they're saying? Do they actually have a shot at the White House, or will their attack strategy backfire, right? Here's the big picture facing all the candidates. This nation has changed since 9/11. Where are those changes taking us as a people? Has President Bush changed too? And are the changes for the better? Some are and some aren't. I'm going to have a very special guest on today to discuss these and many other issues. She's Peggy Noonan, veteran of the Reagan and Bush senior White Houses and author of numerous books. She always has an insightful and interesting take on political affairs. Look, Peggy is a class act. You don't want to miss it. There's also news from all over the world in the Savage Times this week. In France, liberté, égalité, fraternité. In France, liberal France, a court is trying to silence an author who claims that France is corrupt, which sounds like censorship to me, not like liberty to me. But even worse, some idiots in Florida shut down a 6-year-old entrepreneur's business. She was selling lemonade. How heartless do you have to be to pick on a little kid, you morons? I'll tell you all about it today. And the Middle East roadmap is still driving everyone down the road to ruin. Is it a lasting peace? Is it ever really possible? I don't know. I'll have another great guest to talk about the mess in the Middle East right here on the Savage Nation. He's a major player in the process and our guest will share with you all of his insights about what's coming right here in the Savage Nation. And as I said before, what's more pretty than a pretty girl and a cute dog? Not much, and that's why later in the show, I will have Rachel on and a cute doggy as my guests. I'll also bring you up to date on the latest news from the world of entertainment. Did you know that Al Gore is trying to go Hollywood with his own network? Liberal network, of course. I'll tell you what I think that will look like. It's not pretty. And I want you to take a look at what Woody Allen's doing. You're not going to believe this one. You're not going to... Did you hear about Woody Allen? Do we have it running? Because this is astounding. It's rolling now. Woody Allen...
I will not have to refer to my French fried potatoes as freedom fries, and I don't have to freedom kiss my wife when what I really want to do is French kiss her.
Oh, yeah, Woody, you're such a sexy guy. I mean, you really are, you know? You're really a wild, crazy guy, Woody. No wonder you're with the French. More of that later. And who do you think should play Hillary Clinton in the TV movie of her life? More importantly, who should play Michael Savage in the movie of my life coming to theaters soon? Stick around and I'll show you who the choices are, and you can let me know who you would pick. And in keeping with today's theme, I will close today's broadcast with a special commentary about the America that I still hold in my heart. My vision for America. I don't know if America can ever become that again, but I want to tell you something. I believe in it. I believe in borders, language, and culture. I created the Poor Revere Society, which has that vision. We can save America by watching shows like this, by participating in the organizations that understand how far we have come. And as always, I'll be taking your calls at 1-888-MSNBC-USA. If you get on the air with me, remember this. You're going to speak to more people than you'll meet for the rest of your life. You can speak to them right here. Get online right now, because I can't guarantee admission. Because this is the Savage Nation. And as I say every week, be here or be nowhere.
Savage.
Up next, special guest Peggy Noonan talks to Michael about America after September 11th and what the future holds. All this and more on the Savage Nation.
This president comes from a different place. He doesn't have our values. He does not care about the people that you and I grew up with. We need to take back the White House and give this country back to working people.
I love that one. Here is a trial lawyer, John Edwards, who says President Bush doesn't have our values. Hey, John, whose values are you talking about? The trial lawyers of America? It's just one more Democratic sound and fury trick. It's nonsense. It's absurd. Here are some of the richest men in the world running for office claiming that they represent the poor. Everything is a backwards lie with the Democrats. By the way, now let's look, as you well know, it came out how much money they make. We all know, right? We all know that some of the richest politicians are Democrats. Now, the Democrats say they like to stick up for the little guy and for the poor. Let's look at this chart. Here are the 5 richest members of the United States Senate. They're all Democrats. John Kerry, $163 million. And by the way, that doesn't include the wife's inheritance. Now, let me say something right here. I am a capitalist. I am not a communist. If you earn your wealth, God bless you. But let's stop pretending that these wealthy men and women represent the poor and the immigrant and the downtrodden. Let's stop the garbage, okay? Herb Kohl, $11 million. Is he running for something? Who's Herb Kohl? Is he a candidate? I never heard of him. Okay, next one. John Rockefeller. Oh, these are the richest guys I see. We gotta scroll them. Yeah, John Rockefeller, West Virginia, $81 million. John Casino, New Jersey, $71 million. And Dianne Feinstein, Democrat, at $26.3 million. But in fact, that doesn't include her husband's fortune. In fact, 10 of the top 15 richest senators are Democrats. And this doesn't take into account, as I said, spousal income and other places they hide their income. Don't forget Hillary Clinton and her $8 million book deal, and Tom Daschle's wealthy consultant wife. And over in the House, Representative Nancy Pelosi. She constantly harps on how she represents the poor. She can buy and sell them all. She's got estates. She's got real estate. She's got vineyards in her husband's name worth tens, hundreds of millions. Her debts exceed most people's assets. God bless her. I respect wealth. If these Democrats are so concerned about the deficit, why don't they just pay it off? They'd still have enough left to live on, by the way. Here's another great example of phony liberalism with a Democratic presidential candidate caught in the middle. Here's how it goes. There's a proposal to build, wait till you see this one, 130 windmills off the coast of Massachusetts as an alternative energy source. It's good for the environment. It would look something like this. You see the windmills off the coast? Well, guess who's opposing it? Democratic presidential hopeful John Kerry is from Massachusetts. And he's on record saying many times that he supports alternative energy. But Kerry's rich, well-connected liberal friends on Cape Cod now oppose these windmills. Why? Why? Is it because there are more efficient or more cost-effective ways to provide power? I don't think so. No, it's because those windmills off the coast would wreck their views from the homes of those rich, well-connected liberal Democrats. So you see, apparently when it comes to alternative energy, it's not in my backyard. Will Kerry weasel out on this one? It's just politics as usual for the demon cats, okay? Now, to discuss these and other topics, I have a very, very special guest. She was a special assistant to President Ronald Reagan, the chief speechwriter for President George Bush, and she is the author of several books, including A Heart, a Cross, and a Flag, America Today, which is a collection of her writings from the year following the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Peggy Noonan joins me now on the Savage Nation. Hello, Peggy.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming out on this rainy day on the East Coast. It's beautiful out here on the West Coast. In the wake of 9/11, Peggy, you wrote that in America, God is back. Real men are back. Patriotism is back. What exactly do you mean by that, Peggy?
Well, part of what I meant, you know, this book, A Heart, a Cross, and a Flag, not to sound vulgar, like someone selling a book, but the whole book, it consists, Michael, as you know, of columns I wrote for the Wall Street Journal and the Wall Street Journal Online in the very first days after 9/11 and in the year following 9/11. And there were certain things that just as a New Yorker walking along the streets after 9/11 that I saw and discovered. One was that in the shock of 9/11, a new love of country was being born, a new awareness of country, if you will, that sort of almost set my mind back to the 1950s and 60s and 70s when we were youngins and kids on the way up.
Peggy, don't you dare say that. They'll accuse you of being a throwback.
Fine.
Peggy, do you feel
it almost... Michael, do you care?
No, I'm a Neanderthal, and I'm proud of it. Peggy, do you feel that almost everything happening in the world today is somewhat related to 9/11? I mean, really, where we are politically.
I got to tell you, everything that I see the president doing, everything that I see the Bush administration doing, from things that I approve of and agree with very much to things that I have real pause about, I think they're all connected to 9/11. The government spending, the domestic spending, the military spending, all of our moves internationally, the fact that that Bush has executed and won a war, that we may be taking our troops out of Saudi Arabia, that we essentially executed and won a war in Afghanistan. All of these most extraordinary things in the past 2 years grow out of 9/11. Mr. Bush trying to get involved in the Mideast on the roadmap and getting involved in the whole peace process, if that's the right thing to call it.
Well, it's interrelated. Well,
yeah.
you know, Peggy, I'd like to ask you about that. It seems to me, looking at geopolitics from the long view, which you probably had inside track on, I'm just an outsider, you know, a guy looking in, but it looks to me as though we went to war against Saddam, crushed them, broke their military, smashed the Republican Guard, took away a major chess piece off that particular Middle Eastern board. But the trade-off with Israel was, after we do that, you're going to have to give up the West Bank and Gaza. You're going to have to let a Palestinian state appear. And, you know, and then let's hope to God that the New World Order omelet gels, so to speak, in the frying pan. I mean, that's what I think happened. Do you agree with that?
I do think there's a lot to what you say. Moving forward so forcefully in Iraq, the United States, I think it can be argued made the entire Mideast somewhat more stable. It was not a destabilizing fact, but a stabilizing fact. It was helpful also to Israel. But, you know, I think I may think about Israel in a way that is somewhat different from some of your guests. Michael, I am so concerned about the fact that the way that Israel and the other countries around have been doing the same thing for the past 40, 50 years, it won't do anymore. We're in a new era. It is the era of weapons of mass destruction, as you well know. That sort of, it raises the ante and it raises the drama every day. It makes that whole place a hotter place every day.
Cain and Abel, right, Cain and Abel have to stop. It seems to me what you want to do is having a lot of talking and a lot of diplomacy and a lot of the best chances you can to make that place, to make Israel a safer place. So I tend to, among conservatives, I think I'm more pro-talking and pro-diplomacy and pro-meeting. But I agree with you.
But how do you talk?
But how do you talk when you have two sides, Peggy, let's focus on it. It's the hottest issue on the plate. You know,
it is. It is.
You got Israel who says, I hate you, but I can live with you. You got the other side that says, I hate you, but I'm going to kill all of you and push you into the sea. How do you talk with people who want to kill you?
I think one of the things you do is just lower the temperature by your approach. Lowering the temperature there, talking slowly, almost talking dully, calling your meetings, meeting with as many people as possible.
Wait, but
this is a temperature lowerer,
you and I are going to disagree
and that's a good thing to do.
But no, I agree with you. We'd all like to see peace.
Michael,
but
it's
when
no
they're
time
setting
for
off
drama.
bombs and shooting children. Anyway, let's talk about the
understand
Democrats. Let's talk about the Democrats in the White House. Are the Democrats in touch with this country at all, Peggy?
You know, I don't think so, and let me tell you one of the ways that I think you can see they're a little out of touch. I think probably you could say the front-running Democrat right now is John Kerry of Massachusetts.
Right.
A very interesting and compelling figure for many Democrats. Kerry, as you know, last week went forward and said something most unusual in public. He didn't say Mr. Bush is wrong on the Mideast, wrong on Iraq, etc. He said he lied to us. He used, Kerry, very dramatic, very personal language about Bush. I think he did that because he knows that in order to win the Democratic nomination, you have to appeal to a hard, left-wing, angry base within the Democratic Party. Now the cliche, Michael, in our times has been Republicans have a problem with the right. Michael, I got to tell you, I think it's nothing to the problem Democratic candidates have with the hard left in their party, which they have to win over to win their nomination, and then they're in the horrible position of trying to talk to all of the American people in the vast middle with this left-wing, angry rhetoric that they've had in the back to win the nomination.
Well, Peggy, one thing that John Kerry is probably not going to say is accuse George Bush of saying that ketchup is a vegetable. Because if he did that, he would have to agree with Mr. Bush if he said that ketchup is a vegetable for obvious familial and financial reasons. On that note, Peggy, I want to thank you very much for coming out on this wet and wild day here on the Savage Nation. And your book, God bless you. Show that book again. I want to be the vulgar one to show the book, not Peggy Noonan. Today, there's lots more to come on the Savage Nation. Don't touch that clicker. Remember, welcome back in a few minutes right here on the Savage Nation. Donkey versus the elephant, and the Hollywood idiot, and pretty girls and dogs, and pizza, and sunshine, and other stuff right here on the Savage Nation.
Why was this 6-year-old girl forced to shut down her lemonade stand? And what's your opinion on Martha Stewart? Does she deserve jail time? Michael Savage's News of the Week, and your calls next.
Welcome back to the Savage Nation, and once again, it's time to see what's making headlines in the Savage Times, where the slogan is, all the truth that's not in print. The old York Times is up to its old tricks. Today, I almost blew a vessel. I picked it up this morning. I'm in my undershirt, first cup of coffee, you know, still groggy, and the first thing I see this morning, this one really got me crazy. I had to decipher the headline. The liberals are so, like, distorted. Everything they do is backwards. I read this headline. It says, isolation, an old medical tool, has SARS fading. What the hell? What is this? Isolation, an old medical tool, has SARS fading. And I say, here's the Savage headline with my little post-it. Quarantine works. That's what he meant to say, because they quarantined the people with the disease. The disease stopped. It was developed 500 years ago. And why is it that the liberals can't say the Q word? Could be because of the Qs. Now, this first story is a perfect example of what's wrong with America today. Really is. Take a look at this. Here's an adorable little girl. Her name is Abigail. She's 6, and she lives in Naples, Florida. She's a little kid. Every kid, my kid's sold. What does she do? She did what every little kid does. For years, she opened a lemonade stand. Sounds all American, right? It was. But a nasty little neighbor called the cops and complained that little Abigail didn't have a business permit to sell lemonade on her street. The cops were forced to shut this little kid down. This is where we've ended up in the land of the free and the home of the brave, to such cold, heartless, children-hating people that will even crush a 6-year-old's dream because of a stupid technicality. I don't blame the police. I wonder if that neighbor supports the ACLU. You know how they love frivolous legal actions. But there is a happy ending, though. The city of Naples came through with a permit for Abigail and didn't even charge her for it. She's back on the job now, so score one for the real small business person. And by the way, it's a female enterprise. Here's yet another link between liberals and communists. Did you ever hear of the term agitprop? It means political propaganda calculated to assist a specific cause. And it had its origins in the Russian Communist Party. I want you to watch an example of agitprop now. This is a beauty. It's a tape made by a liberal environmental organization called Riverkeeper that wants to close down the Indian Point nuclear plant outside of New York City. Watch this and cry.
Point is a nuclear plant just miles from New York City, and terrorists could use it as a weapon of mass destruction. The radiation from an attack could render New York City uninhabitable, permanently erasing New York from the map.
Can you believe this? They're gonna...
Call Governor Pataki and tell him you want Indian Point shut down.
Oh, God. Why don't you tell Governor Pataki that most of France is run by nuclear power plants, and as are most of the liberal countries in Europe? Who is that voice? Who is that woman? Does she have a mustache in her voice or what? It's another mustachioed female eco-terrorist that's clouding the real agenda here. For years, the liberals have wanted to close nuclear plants at any cost. Liberals are quick to say the conservatives wrap themselves in the flag to advance an agenda. Aren't they just wrapping themselves in the public sphere of terrorism to do the same thing? I want more nuclear power plants in America, not fewer. That will give us independence from the oil cartels. I'll be back. Be here or be nowhere. This is the Savage Nation. And remember, it's the first day of spring. That's why I'm wearing yellow.
Savage.
Can Israelis and Palestinians ever find peace? Michael Savage will talk to Israeli Ambassador Alon Pincus up next.
All right, it's the first day of spring. Welcome back to the Savage Nation. Where is the roadmap to peace in the Middle East leading? Now, this week, the Israeli army took a first step by dismantling a Jewish settlement on the West Bank. This week, a 7-year-old Israeli girl was assassinated by Palestinian freedom fighters. This week, Colin Powell arrived in Israel for talks with Israeli and Palestinian officials. While he was meeting with Ariel Sharon, Palestinians killed an Israeli man, I guess to show their love of peace. This week, Palestinian Prime Minister Abbas called on terrorist groups to halt their attacks, but he did nothing to stop their attacks. He also proposed a joint political leadership that would include Hamas and Islamic Jihad. By all appearances, Israel is willing and is, in fact, bending over backwards for peace. But what are the Palestinians willing to do? And who is really in charge there? Today, the violence continues, and even if it's paved with good intentions, has this roadmap to peace set the Middle East on the road to hell? Joining me to discuss these issues from New York City is Ambassador Alon Pincus, the Consul General of Israel. Alon, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Thank you, Michael. Good to be with you.
Well, you were on my radio show a while ago. This is not a very good roadmap from my point of view as an American looking in. You know, I'm biased here. I see a sovereign state who's losing people day in and day out, and the Palestinians are playing good cop, bad cop. Do you think a Palestinian state would really put an end to terrorism?
Well, I don't see a Palestinian state being established before there is an end to terrorism. So to assume you got the sequence wrong. I mean, I know you have it right, but the way you presented it, to assume that a Palestinian state will be established and then be expected seriously and reasonably to put an end to terrorism is to be naive, and we're not naive anymore.
Not naive anymore, but the U.S. seems to be pushing Israel to the road of peace at all costs.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, Michael. I think that the U.S. is doing what's right for the U.S. in terms of how the U.S. defines its own foreign policy.
Right.
Especially at an era in which there is one superpower, and we've been through these cliches many times. I think that the geopolitical landscape in the Middle East has changed, and will continue changing favorably from Israel's point of view following the American war, the U.S.-led war in Iraq. Having said all that, to be committed, to be involved, to be engaged in the Israeli peace, in the Israeli-Palestinian peace, or rather political process, is something that is consistent with how this president, this Secretary of State, the U.S. indeed, sees its role in the region. So I don't think the U.S. is pushing us. We're doing this and we're going along with this because it is first and foremost entirely in Israeli interest to be involved in this.
All right, but let me ask you something. How do you change the minds of millions of Palestinian youth who are, they're brainwashed from the cradle to kill Jews, to hate Israel? Let's say a state is created and somehow they lay down their arms and blah, blah, blah. How are you going to change the minds of 1 million or more kids under 16 who have been raised from the cradle, as I said, to kill Jews? Well, how are you going to deal with that?
You've raised the $64,000 question. This is not just a valid point. This is the point. It's very difficult, and we're not going to be able to do that. We cannot impose a curriculum in Palestinian schools.
Right.
We cannot write their textbooks for them, and we cannot be responsible for or even stop the incitement that's been going on in mosques, or the money that's coming in from extremists in Saudi Arabia,
right,
or the ideological support that they're being given by the patron saint of terrorism, which is Iran. The only thing that I could see that would stop the incitement, stop the brainwashing, stop the entire educational effort to discredit and undermine Israel's existence is through a viable and durable peace process that would yield visible and tangible benefits to the Palestinians, thus creating a serious disincentive to go on with this kind of criminal and murderous incitement. To tell you that this is doable in the foreseeable future, I cannot. But we have to start somewhere.
Well, okay, I agree, you have to start somewhere. You know, I'm looking back in history. People would say after Hitler was defeated, the Nazi Party leadership was executed at Nuremberg. How are you going to take, God knows how many German youth who have been brainwashed in the Hitler Youth? It may have been 10 million guys, or 15 million men and women at that point who had been through the Hitler Youth camps, trained in the Nazi ideology. And yet Germany was able to make the transition into the family of man. That gives me hope, and perhaps as a model for what could happen in the Palestinian territories, perhaps building industry and giving these a job, a future, capitalism. I don't know, but the Germans did it. The Japanese also got rid of their fascist imperialism after World War II by becoming very busy in creating a nation. Maybe that's the hope. I don't know.
Well, it is the hope, and you're right, and to kind of stretch your analogy here, if you recall, and I'm sure the viewers and you recall, that in Germany, as well in Japan, but in Germany specifically, we had what the so-called various Ds: denazify, democratize, deindustrialize, or demilitarize in the Japanese sense.
Yes.
The same thing needs to be done with the Palestinians. They need to democratize, they need to deterrorize, etc., etc. But in the end, it's about courage and leadership, and I am not sure that the Palestinians have displayed these qualities until now. This is not about how many guns they have. They do have enough. This is not about the infrastructure that they have in terms of their security mechanisms. They have those. In fact, there are 25,000 Palestinian Authority-commissioned policemen and security forces, as opposed to no more than 800 to 1,500, roughly, Hamas and Islamic Jihad activists.
Oh, wait, let's pause for a minute.
These are good odds.
You're saying there are 25,000 semi-legitimate Palestinian police
Fully legitimate, Michael.
Totally legitimate.
Fully legitimate.
Legitimate.
Absolutely.
And there's 800 Hamas. It says 25,000 to 800.
Yes.
Why don't they end it tomorrow?
I wish I could ask you that question. That is my question. I'll tell you more than that. The conditions conducive to such an operation and to its success exist now in a way that they did not exist previously, in that there is an American administration fully backing the Palestinian Prime Minister Mahmoud Abbas, and fully has discredited and kind of marginalized Yasser Arafat. That is a reality that unfortunately did not exist in the last 3 to 5 years. So under these circumstances, the Palestinian Authority has the power, has the backing, has the Israeli tacit support, and has definitely the American commitment to stand by them when they do this.
I don't know why they don't act. But
look, this goes to a civil war. You know this better than I, Michael. Gettysburg may have been a nasty thing, but it saved the Union. This is what they need to go through, a Gettysburg.
Well, Ambassador Pincus, I want to go on record, because I've said it before, there's only one end to this game, and that is two peaceful nations living side by side. The President is on record for it. I'm on record for it. It's not a matter of whether I want it. History wants it. But more importantly, even Prime Minister Sharon is on record for a peaceful neighbor called a Palestinian state. But the emphasis is on the word peaceful. And that's where we all want to go. And I think we need to see that happen real fast. That has to be internal, doesn't it? That's what you're talking about, I think.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. There's one government, one source of authority, one military. Otherwise, we're all wasting time, but more importantly than time, we're wasting youth life.
God bless the peacemakers, and thank you very, very much for coming out on this rainy day on the Savage Nation.
Thank you.
There's more to come. Next, it's puppies and pretty girls on the Savage Nation. Let's get away from murder and mayhem and the roadmap to Poopapoo. Hello, Poopy. My dog is waiting for me here on the Savage Nation. Be here or be nowhere. No, leave it in a... Oh, I'm up. Welcome back to the Savage Nation. And as I told you, promised to you before, this is the show I've been talking about, the Dream America. The America we all hold in our hearts and minds. The America of apple pie, the flag, families, values, and cute puppy dogs. Cute puppy dogs. Cashy, come on, don't be shy. The dog is having a first experience on air, as is Rachel. Now, the America that I want to live in would be safe enough for Rachel and Cash to walk to the corner anywhere in America for a newspaper. That's the vision I have. And we're going to talk in a moment about this vision for America. Rachel, you look great. Cash, you look terrific. We're going to find out more about this wonderful, wonderful dog. But let's go to a few callers on the Savage Nation. 1-800. You know, it's not 1-800. It's 1-888-MSNBC-USA. Let us take an easy call. I don't want to fight with anybody. Let's use out there. Charlie in Santa Cruz. Yeah, you're on the Savage Nation. I'm getting feedback in my ear. Charlie, welcome.
Michael.
Yes.
Yeah, do you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right,
I can hear me in my ear.
Okay. Listen, I think I've discovered the Dems' new attack against the American people. I think what the weapons of mass destruction didn't work, so I think what they're going to try out now is saying that our soldiers are disgruntled and they want to come home. They've only been there 3 months, and that they can't take the pressure and they can't take the heat and they can't take the...
You're 100% right, because today's paper had another article. Again, I'm getting feedback, guys. I'll say it right on the air till some idiot gets it straight back there, okay? You know?
Yeah, my TV's off.
Yeah, no, someone's talking... Here's a cover-up story today in the Old York Times, the liberal bastion. Battlefield aid for soldiers' battered psyches. There you are. Already our soldiers are falling apart according to these liberal freak jobs in New York City. This is one crank, and they're trying to turn it into the whole military. I don't agree with that at all, but thank you for calling on the Savage Nation. Okay, Suzanne, Long Island, you're on the Savage Nation. What's on your mind?
Hi. I just have two comments about Israel and the Palestinians. One, the Arabs say totally different things to their own people about peace and really not wanting peace. And two, Abbas will never have control over Hamas or Jihad or anybody else. And that's a sad thing.
Let me ask you something. I'm trying to have a good time today, too, after this heavy story. Look at this beautiful dog, huh?
Beautiful.
You know, there's something I'm trying to create here. We live in a beautiful nation, a safe nation, a nation of laws, a nation of the law of man. I have freedom of speech. The dog can walk down the street without being killed. I'm serious. Can you imagine a dog like this existing in Gaza?
No.
No.
Or Jerusalem or Haifa or anywhere else right now.
Not today, no, but we live in this beautiful, beautiful world. And, you know, I'm serious. There's a metaphor. Here's a beautiful metaphor right here in the Savage Nation. Okay, Suzanne, thank you for calling. Thank you very, very much. Ali in Yorktown, Virginia, welcome to the Savage Nation. Your comment, please.
Thank you. Mr. Savage, you made comments about Palestinians wanting to get rid of all of the Israelis, and Israelis not liking Palestinians, but they're willing to work with them. I'm afraid that is the wrong assumption. Palestinians are very serious about living with Jews and working with Jews in a peaceful setting, in a peaceful community, and in a peaceful state. What is needed, not the roadmap to peace that President Bush is offering, because that one, I believe, is still lacking. Come
on, make your point. It's too long. What's your bottom line?
The point is you, sir, parade the idea that we live according to certain good values and all that. And good values suggests that we need to have a secular democratic state in Palestine for Muslims, Christians, and Jews.
Absolutely, and that's why we've got to get rid of the concept of jihad, and we've got to stop brainwashing the Palestinian youth to think that they would go to heaven if they blow up other people's children. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it very much. Got to tell me about this dog, Rachel. What kind of dog is it, first of all?
Cockapoo.
A cockapoo. Now, that's not a combination of a cockatiel and a dog, is it?
No.
What is it?
Cocker Spaniel and Poodle.
A Cocker Spaniel and a Poodle, and it has very big eyes. It's the sweetest dog I've ever met, and it loves television. I can see that in the eyes of the dog. I understand that you went away on a trip recently down in Beverly Hills, and you put it into a kennel.
Yeah.
And how much did it cost you a night for the kennel?
About $50.
Oh, think of how many poor starving children you could have fed in Iraq with that.
Did they have therapy anywhere else?
Did they have therapy for this dog in the kennel, truthfully? Come on.
They probably do. I've seen flyers sitting around.
What do they do for $45 a night in a kennel?
They play with other dogs.
They play with other dogs. Will they take talk show hosts on their vacation as well? I'd like to play with other dogs, too. I really would. Oh, God, I love dogs, and I love good people of all races and all nationalities. And I wish to God there was a time in the future, in the very near future, frankly, that we could see gentle dogs and gentle women and gentle men. There's more to come on the Savage Nation, so sit and stay, including the astounding story of Woody Allen acting as a front for the French. He doesn't understand why they love him. It's not because of his comedic genius. It may be because they see him as a schlemiel, the stereotype of the Jewish weakling. That's my opinion. Stay here on the Savage Nation. Be here or be nowhere.
Savage.
Al Gore wants a liberal news channel. Michael Savage tells you why it will fail. And who should play Hillary Clinton in the movie of her life? Stay with the Savage Nation.
Join me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.
Yeah. All right, that's terrific. This guy definitely has a career. He definitely has a career in entertainment if he doesn't work out as a president. No wonder they're out of touch. This is astounding. This was worse than Citizen Kane, you know, with one hand clapping. It's time to take a look at the wonderful world of entertainment, where art imitates life, and then life starts imitating art until a nation of Hollywood idiots is created who can't tell them apart. Here is the funniest story I've heard all week. Former Vice President Al Gore has been making the rounds of Hollywood's illiberal losers and B-list media types, trying to see if he can create a, quote, liberal television and radio network. Newsflash, Al Gore. The TV networks, all of them, are already liberal. Even the BBC over in England is liberal. But actually, I hope he does it just so I can watch another one fail. And it will, because there's not a liberal out there who has the talent or a message with lasting power in radio or television. Just for fun, let's see how the Bohr TV network would report some of the big stories from his distorted liberal point of view. On the 9/11 attacks, Gore's network would say, America's refusal to embrace multicultural viewpoints led an oppressed Islamic minority to lash out at our racist culture. We have no one to blame for the deaths of thousands but our own selfishness in America. On Jessica Lynch, Gore TV would probably say, the United States military fabricated a daring nighttime raid to create even more support for the war in Iraq, which we know was all about oil for Republican gas-guzzling SUVs and not about the liberation of an oppressed people. One of Al Gore's pet issues is global warming. I can prove to you that it doesn't exist in 2 words. Ice Age. It's simple. My friend Maurice taught it to me. The Ice Age ended. The ice melted long before there was industry. Long before the internal combustion engine and automobiles. All the things that Al Gore points to as causes of global warming did not exist when there was the first example of global warming and the ice caps started to melt. If Al Gore had been around at the end of the Ice Age, his TV network would probably have said, civilization came to an end today due to global warming. It began when methane gases released by flatulent dinosaurs heated Earth's atmosphere and caused the polar ice caps to melt. leading to their extinction, so we want to outlaw dinosaurs. And that's where the term fossil fuel came from. The world is buzzing about who'll play Hillary Clinton in the movie of her life. How about Woody Allen in a wig? But there's a more important question, and that is who should play me? Oh, good. Oh, good graphic. Oh, thank you for whoever did that one. No, that's not who's going to play me. How about who's going to play Michael Savage in the story of the Savage Nation? I mean, when this book becomes the movie version, we got to get someone to play me. Here's some candidates. How about James Woods? How about Al Pacino? Let's see what Al Pacino would look like. How about Harvey Keitel? Oh! How about Jack Nicholson? Jack Nicholson, come on, let's get the... Remember, I'm presenting an idealist vision of America today, so these are my ideal visions of Michael Savage, although I think I'm just as good-looking as any of these guys. By the way, I saw Nicholson's movie last night about Schmidt. It's a killer. It's wonderful. It's great. He's a great actor. Last week, I revealed Woody Allen as the Hollywood idiot for supporting the French. This week, I want to show you why. I want you to watch this. Here is the cherry on the cake today. Just watch this. Here we go.
States and France have been great friends and great allies going back many, many years to the birth of both of these two great democracies. And recently, there has been a lot of controversy between the countries.
What kind of controversy? What is the controversy, Wood?
Two countries could put all that behind them and start to build on what really has been a great friendship and hopefully
Schlemiel.
Great future.
Say Schlemiel in French.
No one will be petty about this.
Schlemiel. Les Schlemiel.
And I will not have to refer to my French fried potatoes as freedom fries, and I don't have to freedom kiss my wife when
I God, you're so sexy.
So let's pull together now.
Oh, let's pull together now. Ugh, Woody, please. He says he's tired of calling them freedom fries. I guess he's forgotten the price we pay for freedom in this country, a price the French weren't willing to meet, Woody. I wonder why Alan loves the French even as they stab us in the back. Is it because they find them funny? But why do the French find Woody funny? Could it be because they like to laugh at Jews who act like stereotypical weaklings or schlemiels? I want to talk for a minute. For years we've heard that the French found Jerry Lewis funny. Then we heard that the French, who are, as you well know, are more sophisticated than anyone on earth, loved Woody Allen. Now, why is it they love two Jewish comedians who are self-deprecating? And by the way, I think Woody Allen is a fabulous entertainer. I think he's a fabulous director. I think Jerry Lewis is a genius. But I'm not French. I don't laugh at them. I actually laugh with them. I think that Woody Allen doesn't realize that the French are laughing at him because he represents a nasty stereotype. Here's some advice, Woody. Listen to my closing commentary, and you might learn something about what it means to be an American. As you know, I always end the Savage Nation with videos showing a train leaving the station. Today, I'd like to explain why I do that. It's because of what trains represent to me. When I was a little boy in New York City, my mom used to take me on trips to visit her brother in Pennsylvania. That was my uncle and my aunt and my cousin, and we go by train. I loved the entire experience. There was the hustle and bustle of Penn Station. It was crowded and it was busy and it was a little scary, but it always felt safe. There were the big locomotives and the conductors yelling, "All aboard!" To a small boy, that conductor in his uniform could have been a general in the army. Then the train would start to rumble. And at first it was dark as we passed through the tunnel under the Hudson River, heading west. Then suddenly, the sunlight. The train emerges in New Jersey. It was billowing black smoke. But that wasn't pollution to me. That smoke represented freedom to me. It was a powerful train taking me from the city out into the freedom of the country of Pennsylvania. And when we arrived, there was always that moment of anticipation. Where are they? Where are the relatives? Will they be here? Do they know we're coming? And then there they are. You spot them across the crowded platform, and you run to them. They run to you, and you hug them. You're united as a family, sharing the moment. It was a purer time. We were a purer people. And I don't know if that America, the America that I carry in the Savage head, frankly, if it exists anymore. It seems like a dream. But we need to dream. We need to be idealistic. We need to believe in that the world that we envision in our heads can become real if we want it to. It all starts here. And if you share the dream, that I share, then the world and the work to make it come true will happen. Because without dreams, we lose the battle for the future before it even begins. Without dreams, we are nothing. Without dreams, we are not human. And that's it for this week's Savage Nation. Borders, language, culture. Did we get out?